Hello and welcome to my talk, Delivering the Impossible. It's got a bunch of different taglines, um, uh, better metaphors for successful project management, um, how to eat the world, how to rule the world, and we'll see how and why talking about software project management, successful software project management, is a recipe to rule and eat the world. And this this talk really is about um, lots of different ways of looking at things, which might make managing software projects, particularly, and also other kinds of projects, more successful. So, um, let me start with a quote from Isaac Newton. Isaac Newton, an astrologer and astronomer and astrologer, said, "If I have seen further, it is because I have stood on the shoulders of giants." A good friend of mine once said, "If I have seen further, it is because I have looked down the right end of the telescope." Point of view is very important. The great innovator in software development, Alan Kay, said that point of view is worth 80 IQ points. And that sounds very good and enthusiastic and positive, until you realise that a bad point of view could take away 80 IQ points rather than add them. So a good point of view could make you into a genius. A bad point of view can make you very stupid indeed. Now, why am I talking about software development and project management? Why on earth did I think this could be a fringe show? Lots of people have asked me this. Um, well, now is a very good time to be talking about this because, as the founder of Netscape and now a guy who runs a massive fund developing and investing in the leading technologies in Silicon Valley, Mark Andreessen, said, software is eating everything. So your life is probably being completely devoured by software as we speak. If you're interested in romance or sex, then that's probably been taken care of by Tinder and Pornhub. If you're interested in television, then of course that's been taken care of by Amazon and Netflix, and then lots of other companies that have jumped on the bandwagon. Your finances have probably been taken care of by enormous amounts of software. Food has been completely devoured by software. So obviously things like Deliveroo to get your food delivered to your door, you can order food from the supermarket and it arrives at your door, but also all of the technology that puts food on supermarket shelves and means that it's there for you to reach out and touch and pick up and carry away, all of that is completely dominated by software. Software is devouring the world, and the people who own that software, the people who are managing to put out that new software into the world, those people are multiple billionaires and they are ruling the world. That's why I can say at the start of this talk that this is a talk about how to eat the world and how to rule the world, because software really is doing both of those things. So why should you listen to me, a man talking in a field who can't even manage to arrange a venue for the Fringe? Well, here's one reason why you might want to be talking to me about this, why you might want to be listening to me about this. I've been doing this a very long time. That's quite a boring reason why you should listen to me about this. I've been doing software project management since 1994. And another reason why you should listen to me, it's a boring reason, is that I've delivered lots and lots of projects. So I've worked on really huge projects and I've delivered them successfully. I've worked on small projects and delivered them successfully. I've worked for big commercial organisations. I've worked for the UK government. So those are the boring reasons. The slightly less boring reasons, I hope, are that I have a different take on this from most of the things that you will read in books on how to do project management or talks and how to do project management. We're going to talk about the different ways of looking at things that I'm going to advocate as a way to help doing projects. But also, I'm under no illusions that the whole business of managing projects is anything less than crazy. I've done it long enough to know that it's more of a psychological battle than it is to do with anything connected with engineering or rationality or business. And part of the reason for that, I'll explain the whole business of why we spend most of our project in this kind of like in this tough place where psychologically we're struggling. I'll explain that later. So those are the kind of less boring reasons why you might want to listen to me talk about this. Why you? Why should you be interested in this? Well, if you are actually somebody who works on software development teams and works doing software development, then this is definitely for you. If you're somebody who's a project manager and you project manage projects, software development projects, but maybe other projects as well, then this is definitely for you. And then there's a whole load of people who are connected with organizations that need software. They need software to make their organizations work better, whether they're private companies or they're government organizations, etc. And feel that they don't really have any control over that process. They don't really know how it works. This is definitely for you as well. But then I'm going to go for a huge land grab, and I'm going to say that anybody who is remotely connected to any kind of creative process and has an idea and wants to develop that idea, or is stuck trying to develop that idea for somebody who's had that idea, then this is for you as well. And so I've just established, I think, that everybody should pay attention to this. And the thing that I'm going to talk about first, the thing that I'm going to cover mainly in this talk, is I'm going to talk about a thing called value streams. And the way that I'm going to explain that to start with is by talking about cars. Cars are things that, to some degree, we understand. We know when we want a car, we know when we've been run over by one. So cars at first were developed in America by the Ford Motor Company. They pioneered the idea of mass production and the whole production line. And in Japan in the 30s, a company that made sewing machines started to think that maybe they could make cars, and they went on a trip to the Ford Motor Company in Indiana in America, and they looked at the way the Americans were making cars, and they realized that they couldn't make cars in the same way for two important reasons. One was that the kind of mass production approach that the Ford Motor Company had required an enormous country with a massive market, and Japan at the time was a tiny market. It wasn't a big economy. And the second reason was connected with that is that the economy was cyclical, so that it went up and it went down, and so that at some points not many people were going to want to buy anything, let alone cars, and then at other points people would have more money and they'd want to buy things. So the people at this sewing machine company, which was called Toyota, they came up with an approach to making cars, which, yes, it used an assembly line, but it had a couple of tweaks to it that made it so that it was really effective even in the Japanese market. One was that they realized that only when the assembly line is flowing and things are being added, is there any value being added to a car. And at any time at which the assembly line is being stopped, that's waste. Nothing is being added, there's no value being added. So they came up with this idea of a value stream, that at each stage, this is the phrase that they use, at each stage of the production line, extra value is being added. Now, because, as I said, demand in Japan was very up and down and kind of like more limited than it was in the States. The Toyota company added a kind of extra feature to their production line, which is that they only made cars that they knew there was a demand for, that they knew that was somebody wanted to actually buy that car. And they eventually came up with an extremely elaborate system for making sure, and it's called pull, that kind of like when there was a demand identified for a particular car, then that car would start to kind of come down the production line, and all the parts for that car would appear at the right time. This is the kind of idea of just-in-time manufacture, and at the end, then this car would be delivered. It would be pulled off the production lines in a kind of like smooth process. So this is a value stream. This is a production system for existing products. But what I'm talking about in this talk is not existing products. It's products that don't exist. And for products that don't exist, the way I'm going to explain this is there are two value streams for products that don't exist. But they're different from this product's value stream for existing products, in that one of those value streams is weird and the other one doesn't yet exist. So let's talk about this weird value stream first. The weird value stream is the idea. So the idea to do this product, it's come from somewhere, it's had bits added onto it, a value added onto it, to the point where it's got funded and somebody's decided that this project is going to happen. Now very often that process, that value stream that gets an idea to the point where it gets funded, is very opaque. Especially if you're the person who's been tasked to deliver it rather than the people who are involved in the discussions about whether it should get funded. That could just be because the chairman thinks it's a good idea. It could be because competitors have got this. It could be because they know that legislation is coming up and they're going to need to do this. Like, what the motivation for that thing is very opaque. And the other thing about the what makes the idea weird is that it's very often wrapped in enthusiastic, vague language, which is designed to discourage people thinking about it too much. So often it will talk about, the kind of things that people put in adverts: bigger, faster, newer, smarter, does exactly what the old system did but better, new technology, all of those things, new improved flavour but the same, that kind of thing is wrapped around the idea. Now the other value stream, I talked about the idea value stream. The other value stream is the one that doesn't exist. And the one that doesn't exist, think about it for a second. For a new product, you don't have those people waiting on the end of the production line. You don't know who those people are. They don't know what they want. You have to kind of connect this idea. You have to figure out how to build value into this product and connect it with people who want it. You have to construct all of that. It's not all there for you. And here's where it gets really, really difficult. When you start to do that, when you start to construct that new value stream, where you start to think, okay, well, which bits do we actually need to put together, in what order, to what degree of effectiveness, or to what degree of power, all the things that you need to understand in order to make something and connect it to some people. When you start to do that, you start to undermine the idea, because the idea has got this gloss, this shine on it. When you have to actually start developing something, you have to take that shine off, because you actually have to dig into it and figure out really what is required. Now, in order to do that, you're going to suffer in this phase where you're doing things, those things are knocking the idea, but you don't have anything yet that you've connected together to deliver any value. And this is something that really astounds me, that this is the phase that most projects will be in for most of the time of their existence. But it's something that is not talked about. Most books that talk about project management talk about, if you implement this kind of structure, if you do these kinds of methodologies, then you will be successful. But that is just in my view, it's just so dishonest. Because in reality, if you do a project, the kinds of projects that are successful, you will be stuck in this desert for most of the time. And if you come to my show, and I have 45 minutes rather than 15 minutes, I will explain to you what those things are that you can do to make existing in that desert as comfortable as possible, and getting out of that desert as quick as possible to actually realize some value and start to make the project success. I'll talk to you about ways of looking at things, ways of doing things that mean that that's more likely. Thanks very much.